Hi ladies, this week's review lesson is going to be over dividing decimals. So this week we are on week 11, so this is starting on page 21 in your packet. And then it's going to be going through, it looks like around page 28 in your packet. Just a reminder, Friday is graduation day, so you do not have an assignment that you're going to have to be completing on Friday this week. So make sure that you send your assessment information or that assessment page on Thursday if possible, but also will accept on Friday and through the weekend as well. So if you want to get your stuff sent to me early, awesome. You can send it to us on Thursday, either through Remind or you can also send through email. Remind is preferred, but email works too. All right, so we are on page 21 in your packet. So you'll notice that there are a couple different charts that you can look at. You can look at dividing decimals in different ways. So we can look at kind of how we're going to move that decimal to make sure that you have a whole number, because remember, on the outside, that divisor, the number you're dividing by, has to be a whole number. So we want to make sure that we have a whole number on the outside, but we'll go through a couple of steps with that. But there are some pages or some examples on page 21 that can help you. So let's look at page 22, and we'll do the top two boxes together. These are basically us dividing by powers of 10. So that means if we're dividing, we want to move our decimal to the left, because that means that we're going to be getting smaller. Our answer is going to be smaller. And if we're dividing, our answer gets smaller. And remember that 0 tells us how many times we want to move it. So if we have 1 0, that means we only want to move our decimal one time, which would give me an answer of 25 hundredths. On this next one, we're dividing by 100, which has two zeros, which on this one means we want to have two bowls, 1, 2, and then we fill an empty bowl with a 0. So then you want to fill in that correct answer with a decimal, that 0 that now we've added to our answer, and then the original 25 or 2 and 5 that we started with. On the next one, we have 3 zeros because we're dividing by 1,000, which means we're going to start where that decimal is, move again to the left, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. And remember, these empty bowls we fill with a 0. So now we're going to have a decimal with 2 zeros now, and then the 2 and the 5. And then this last one, we have 4 zeros. So same scenario, 1, 2, 3, 4. We added our decimal in, and then we're going to fill these 3 empty bowls with zeros. So our decimal, 3 zeros, and then that 2 and 5 that we started with. All right. So now, same thing. But on this one, instead of having only one number before the decimal, we're going to have 2. So it's going to be a little bit different how we're going to have our answer showing up. So looking at 40 and 5/10 divided by 10, remember the 10 tells us we want to move 1 time to the left, starting with where our decimal is and adding a decimal into its new spot. So then this one's going to have a 4 in the ones place, and then the 0 and 5 are going to be after the decimal. Looking at the next one, we're dividing by 100, which means now we want to move 2 times. 1, 2. Really important that each number has its own bowl. So we have our decimal, a 4, a 0, and a 5 after the decimal. All right, next one, we're dividing by 1,000, which means we're going to move our decimal 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Remember, each number gets its own bowl. Empty bowls are filled with zeros. So decimal, 0, 4. Oops. We'll try that 4 again. 0, 4, and 5. Oop, 0, 4, 0, 5. There we go. And then also remember, if there is a decimal already in the answer, you don't want to put that decimal back in that spot. You don't want more than one decimal. So you want to make sure that you're moving it to its no location. Now we're dividing by 10,000, so we're going to have 4 places that we're moving. Remember, to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have 2 new bowls. So decimal, 0, not sure what's happening, 0, 4, 0, 5. All right. So then you're going to be completing independently these bottom ones on your own. And these are exactly the same as what we did up top. When you get into these larger numbers on the bottom, or I guess this larger number on the bottom, you'll notice that there's a comma right here. If the comma no longer is needed, you want to make sure that you take it out. So the comma represents that the sevens in the thousands place, or the thousands place. So you want to make sure if it doesn't belong anymore, that you remove it and you don't put it into your final answer. All right, look at page 23 in your packet. On this one, we're going to be finding the quotient. So you'll notice that up top, it gives you examples of exactly how to answer each of these questions. So looking at A, so we'll do A together. I think this is a 2-page problem. Yeah. So page 23 and 24 go together, actually. So we'll do a couple of these together, and then you can do some on 24 on your own. So just a reminder, you cannot have a whole number, or I'm sorry, you cannot have a decimal as a divisor, so you have to make sure that you're turning it into a whole number. So what we're going to do is we're going to move that decimal 1 time here, which means we also move that decimal 1 time here, and then we want to make sure that we put it in our quotient immediately. So this is the new location of our decimal in our quotient. So now what we're doing is we're taking the whole number 4 into this number. So we know that 4 cannot go into 1, but can 4 go? Why is this happening? Oh man. There we go. Cannot go into 1, but 4 can go into 12. 4 goes into 12 3 times. So the 3 is going to go above the 2. So then 4 times 3 is 12. And we go through each of the steps, subtracting now. 12 minus 12 is 0. And then bringing down the 8. Now, can 4 go into 8? Yes, it can go in 2 times. But you'll notice that we brought up our decimal. So then now that 2, which is going to be how many times 4 goes into 8, needs to go after the decimal. Okay, so 4 times 2 is 8. We subtract and are left with no remainder. But reminder, you want to make sure that you're putting each of those digits in the correct place value. So the 3 has to be in front of the decimal and the 2 has to be behind the decimal. Looking at B, you'll notice now we have 2 place values that we have to move. 1, 2, in order to have 3 as our whole number. So if we move our decimal 2 times here, we also need to move our decimal 2 times here. And then immediately putting your decimal in its new location. So can 3, we know it cannot go into 0. So now we're going to take 3 into 5. 3 goes into 5 1 time. 3 times 1 is 3. Remember, we're using the 5, so you want to subtract below the 5. The 3 times 1, the answer goes here below the 5. 5 minus 3 is 2. Bring down your 4. 3 goes into 24 8 times. And remember, whatever number that you're going into, you want to make sure that that answer goes right above in that place value. And each of these, I believe, should go in evenly, so you shouldn't have any problems there. On C, moving your decimal 1 time, which means 1 time in the dividend, bring up your decimal immediately. And now we want to ask ourselves, can 9 go into 3? No. Can 9 go into 39? Yes. So we want to see how many times it can go in, which is 4. 9 times 4 is 36. We subtract. 9 minus 6 is 3. Bring down your 6. And then do this again. 9 goes into 36. But reminder, we are going in, we just brought the 6 down. So now we want to say, can 9 go into 36? Yes, it can. It goes in 4 times. And the 4 now needs to be above the 6 on the other side of the decimal. 9 times 4 is 36. We subtract and are left with 0. All right, last one that we're going to look at is D. On D, you'll notice that there's nothing we need to do here. So we just need to bring up our decimal into the quotient and now divide like normal. 7 cannot go into 3. 7 goes into 38. So 7 times 5. 7 times 5 is 35. We subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3. Now we want to bring down that 5 and ask, can 7 go into 35? Yes, it can. Now we're going on the other side of the decimal. 7 times 5 is 35. My computer is freaking out, sorry. And we subtract and get 0. So now on page 24, this is just a continuance of examples that we just did. So you want to make sure that you refer back to the ones we did together or this top portion to help you on E through these stars. All right, so looking at page 25. So 25 is going to be page 25 and 26 will go together. And then this is just a little bit more difficult, okay? So these are basically a continuance of what we just did, but these are going to be a little bit more of a challenge. All right, so looking at A, same thing. You want to make sure that you move that decimal, and then you want to make sure you move it again into your problem. All right, so then bringing up your decimal into your quotient, but now we're taking 33 into these numbers. So we know that 33 cannot go into 2. We know that 33 cannot go into 26. So now we want to figure out how many times 33 can go into 264. So we do know that 33 times 10 is going to be 330, which is too much. So now we want to kind of ask ourselves, what could we maybe think about? How many times maybe can 3 go into 26? And this would go in around 8 times. So a great place to start on this one would be 33 times 8. So we go through, we're going to solve this. So we have 24. 8 times 3 is 24, 25, 26. We also knew that it had to be a single digit number because we only have 1 digit left. So this is going to go in evenly 8 times. So our answer is 8/10. All right, so looking at the next one, B, we're going to move our decimal now 2 times to make sure we have 27 as our whole number. And then we're going to move our decimal again 2 times because that's what we did over here in the divisor. So we know 27 can't go into 0. So we're going to show that place value does not need a number. 27 cannot go into 3. So now we want to see, can 27 go into 32? So 27 does go into 32 one time. We do our multiplication and then we subtract. Borrow. 12 minus 7 gives me 5. 2 minus 2 is nothing. Bring down your 4. 27 into 54. So I know that it can go in once. So now what we want to do is we want to see if it can go in twice. So we want to see if 27 times 2 gives us 54. So 2 times 7 is 14. 4 times 4 is, or I'm sorry, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So 27 goes into 54 2 times, and remember, it goes on the opposite side of the decimal. All right, so we'll do C together, moving your decimal 2 times, but you'll notice that this doesn't have a decimal. So when we don't have a decimal, we assume it's at the end, which means we still have to move it 2 times. So your decimal now is all the way over here. And then these are going to be zeros. Can 16 go into 3? We know it cannot. 16 can go into 32 though. And we know that 16 times 2 is 32. So if this is 32, we know that the rest of these are going to be zeros. All right, so you are going to be completing D and then page 26 as well through these bottom starred extra questions. All right. And then your assessment is going to be on Thursday this week. So your assessment is 7 questions long. Just a reminder on number 3, you want to make sure that each answer only has one box filled underneath it, because each row is only going to have one answer, which means each column has to have a different answer. All right, and just a reminder, you want to make sure that you are sending your assessment to us on Thursday, which is the 18th, because Friday is graduation day and you do not have an assignment due on graduation day. And we'll see you at 1 o'clock for our virtual graduation that day. So you want to make sure that you get this assignment sent to us on Thursday. Reminder, you can send that through Remind, or you can also send it to email if you prefer that. And then also just a reminder, throughout the week, you have an assignment on Pearson Realize. It's going to be listed as week 11. And then you're just going to basically, you have 4 assignments. I believe there's a game or 2 included in your weekly online work this week. So make sure that you are logging on, doing those games, doing those couple of quick assignments on Pearson Realize so you can get those extra points throughout the week. And then also just a reminder, make sure that you are sending your work to us on Friday or on Thursday or Friday, because this is the way that you are able to get your assessment points for the week. All right, so just as always, if you have any questions, bring your questions to Zoom on Tuesday and Thursday this week, or you can always reach out through Remind or email.